The massive ships of the Zephyrian coalition drifted slowly through the dark space around Kepler 424. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the routine patrol routes with deep satisfaction. His green-scaled hands rested behind his back as he observed the peaceful sector displays. 300 years of control had made this system a model of galactic order and stability. The bridge crew moved with lazy efficiency around their stations. Communications Officer Zelric monitored the standard channels, while Navigation Officer Kethmol tracked the predictable movement patterns of cargo vessels and mining ships. Everything followed the established protocols that had kept peace in this corner of the galaxy for longer than most species could. Remember, Vexter's thoughts drifted to the humans who remained trapped in their home system 50 light-years away. Earth had been quarantined for exactly 50 years after their clumsy attempts at aggressive expansion into coalition space. The foolish humans had thought their primitive nuclear, weapons, and chemical rockets could challenge the advanced technologies of 1,000 different alien civilizations. The Admiral remembered the brief conflict with a mixture of amusement and pity. Human ships had been easily disabled, and their crews sent back to Earth with a simple message: stay in your system or face complete destruction. The quarantine barriers had been established and Earth had gone silent. Regular surveillance showed the humans fighting among themselves for resources while their technology stagnated under the pressure of isolation. Deep in Earth's solar system, the UES Tempest hung in the shadow of an asteroid mining station near Jupiter. The ship looked ordinary from the outside with its gray hull and standard engine configuration. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the narrow corridors, checking on his crew during their night shift rotation. His boots made soft sounds on the metal flooring as he moved from section to section. The Tempest carried 47 crew members who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. Each person had been carefully selected not just for their skills, but for their absolute commitment to seeing humanity break free from its cage. They had spent 3 years in secret preparation for this moment. Chief Engineer Lisa Barnes worked late in the engine room, surrounded by machinery that would have confused even the most advanced alien scientists. Her hands moved carefully over control panels that monitored systems no other human ship possessed. The dark matter collectors hummed quietly, while quantum field generators maintained perfect stability in their protective housing. Barnes wiped sweat from her forehead and checked the readings again. The power levels remained steady at 98% efficiency. Project Wildcard had taken 12 years to develop, and another 5 years to test in complete secrecy. The Coalition had no idea that humanity had solved problems their own scientists considered impossible. Weapons Officer Ryan Carter sat in his quarters, studying tactical displays on his personal tablet. The screen showed detailed plans for every known Coalition ship class along with their weapon systems and defensive capabilities. Carter had memorized the weak points of 17 different alien technologies and practiced attack patterns until he could execute them in his sleep. The Coalition forces believed humans were still using primitive kinetic weapons and explosive missiles. Their intelligence reports showed Earth's military struggling with basic space combat and resource shortages. What they did not know was that every scrap of metal and every scientific breakthrough had been secretly funneled into Project Wildcard. Back on the Coalition, Flagship Admiral Vextar received his daily intelligence briefing from Commander Siltek. The report contained the usual information about human activities around Earth. Mining operations continued at reduced levels, while military exercises remained limited to near-Earth space. No ships had been detected leaving the Sol system in over 2 years. Silthek's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he delivered the assessment that human technological development had essentially stopped. Their space program appeared focused on maintaining existing orbital installations, rather than advancing toward interstellar capability. The quarantine was working exactly as intended. The Galactic Senate had recently voted to reduce military presence in border systems by 30%. Senator Mordan of the Crystalline Hegemony had argued successfully that resources were being wasted on unnecessary patrols. The human threat had been eliminated, and other priorities demanded attention across the galaxy. This decision pleased Admiral Vextar because it meant more ships could be assigned to exploration missions and trade route protection. The Coalition's golden age of expansion could continue without worrying about primitive species causing trouble in established territories. Peace and prosperity stretched across thousands of star systems under their wise guidance. On Earth, Dr. Amanda Foster stood in her laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, reviewing test results that would have terrified every alien government in the galaxy. Her team had finally achieved stable antimatter reactions using techniques that bypassed conventional physics entirely. The breakthrough had come after years of studying quantum tunneling, effects in naturally occurring crystal formations. Foster's research had been funded through a network of secret military contracts and private donations from wealthy individuals who believed in human independence. The laboratory itself had been carved from solid rock and shielded against any form of detection. Even other human governments remained unaware of the facility's existence. Navigation Officer Claire Adams plotted courses on the Tempest's advanced computer systems. Her calculations showed optimal routes to 12 different Coalition strongholds, including the heavily defended Arcturus station. Each route had been designed to avoid detection, while maximizing the impact of their arrival. Adams had spent months studying Coalition patrol patterns and communication protocols. She knew exactly when their sensors would be focused elsewhere, and which approach vectors would give the Tempest the greatest tactical advantage. The element of surprise would be crucial for the success of their mission. The Coalition's confidence in their quarantine had grown so complete that they no longer maintained constant surveillance of the Sol system. Automated monitoring stations checked for large energy signatures once every 72 hours, while patrol ships visited the area only when their routes happened to pass nearby. This complacency had allowed human engineers to test their new technologies without triggering immediate investigation. Small-scale experiments had been conducted in the outer asteroid belt, where any unusual readings could be attributed to mining operations or natural phenomena. Captain Morrison stood in his ready room staring at a photograph of Earth taken from lunar orbit. The blue and white marble hung in space like a precious gem, waiting to be freed from its invisible prison. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of humanity's greatest gamble and potentially its finest hour. The Tempest was ready, and his crew was prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Coalition forces throughout the galaxy continued their routine operations, completely unaware that everything was about to change forever. Dr. Amanda Foster stood before the massive quantum chamber, deep beneath the Earth's surface, as alarms flashed green across every monitoring station. The breakthrough had finally happened after 15 years of failures and near disasters. Her hands shook slightly as she watched the impossible reading scroll across her screens, showing stable dark matter, manipulation on a scale that defied every known law of physics. The crystalline matrix they had discovered in the Mariana Trench 3 years ago was the key to everything. Engineer Kevin Walsh had been diving in experimental suits to collect samples when he noticed the strange energy readings coming from formations nobody had seen before. The crystals seemed to absorb and redirect quantum fields in ways that made antimatter reactions completely stable and controllable. Walsh now monitored the primary containment systems as dark matter flowed through channels carved from the alien crystals. The energy output was beyond anything human science had previously achieved, while remaining perfectly safe to operate. Coalition scientists would have called it impossible, but the readings proved that humanity had stumbled onto something extraordinary. Foster activated the communication linked to the Tempest floating in Jupiter's shadow. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined as she delivered the news that would change everything. The quantum tunneling drive was ready for full-scale testing, and the antimatter weapons systems had passed every safety protocol they could devise. Morrison felt his heart race as he absorbed the implications of Foster's report. Project Wildcard had consumed the resources of dozens of nations and the secret cooperation of Earth's brightest minds for over a decade. Now they finally had technology that could challenge the Coalition's stranglehold on human civilization and give them a fighting chance at freedom. Chief Engineer Lisa Barnes reviewed the technical specifications that Foster transmitted to the Tempest computer systems. The new drive would allow them to travel distances in hours that normally took Coalition ships several days to cross. More importantly, their passage would be completely undetectable until they chose to drop out of quantum tunnel space. Wherever they wanted to appear, Barnes called her engineering team together in the main work bay to begin the installation process. The quantum drive components had been manufactured in secret facilities across Earth and smuggled to the Tempest piece by piece over 6 months. Each part looked innocent enough to pass casual inspection, but together they formed humanity's ticket to the stars. The installation took 18 hours of careful work as Barnes and her team connected quantum field generators to the ship's main power systems. Engineer Danny Rodriguez handled the delicate process of integrating the new drive with their existing navigation computers while maintaining complete isolation from any external communication systems that might leak. Information. Navigation Officer Claire Adams worked with Rodriguez to program the quantum tunneling coordinates that would take them directly into Coalition space. The calculations required precise measurements of gravitational fields and stellar positions that had taken months to gather through careful observation of radio telescope data and deep space monitoring stations. Adams plotted their first destination as the Arcturus system, where Coalition forces maintained a major military headquarters. The base commanded 12 star systems and served as the regional center for all quarantine enforcement operations. Striking there would send an unmistakable message that humanity was no longer willing to accept imprisonment in their home system. While the Tempest prepared for its historic mission, Coalition forces throughout the galaxy continued their routine operations with no awareness of the approaching storm. Admiral Vextar reviewed patrol schedules that showed reduced coverage in border regions as ships were reassigned to more profitable trade route. Protection duties. Commander Silthek delivered his weekly intelligence summary showing continued human stagnation in the Sol system. Earth's orbital traffic remained at minimal levels, while military exercises appeared focused on defensive operations rather than any attempt at interstellar expansion. The quarantine barriers showed no signs of testing or probing by human vessels. The Coalition's confidence had grown so complete that they had begun discussing permanent reduction of the quarantine monitoring systems. Senator Mordaunt argued in the Galactic Senate that resources being spent on watching primitive humans could be better used for exploration of newly discovered star systems, rich in rare minerals and exotic matter. Back on the Tempest, Weapons Officer Ryan Carter supervised the installation of humanity's most closely guarded secret weapons. The antimatter pulse cannons looked like standard plasma projectors from the outside, but contained focusing crystals that could destabilize matter on a subatomic level. The weapons could disable entire fleets without destroying them completely. Carter had spent 2 years training with simulation systems that modeled every known Coalition ship design and defensive configuration. The pulse cannons could penetrate energy shields by temporarily shifting their frequency patterns in ways that alien technology was not designed to handle. Coalition engineers had never encountered weapons that operated on quantum manipulation principles. Dr. Foster transmitted the final activation codes to the Tempest along with detailed instructions for operating the new system safely. The quantum drive required precise timing to avoid catastrophic failure, while the antimatter weapons needed careful power regulation to prevent overload conditions that could destroy the ship itself. Systems analyst Greg Palmer worked with Foster's team to install stealth capabilities that would keep the Tempest invisible to Coalition sensors until they chose to reveal themselves. The stealth system used the same quantum field manipulation that powered their drive to bend electromagnetic radiation around the ship's hull. Palmer tested the stealth generators while the Tempest remained hidden in Jupiter's magnetic field. Coalition monitoring stations in the outer solar system showed no change in their readings even when the ship moved to different positions. The invisibility system worked perfectly and would give them complete tactical surprise when they reached their target. Communications. Officer Beth Turner prepared the message they would broadcast to Coalition forces after their arrival. The transmission would be simple and direct, stating humanity's demand for an end to the quarantine and recognition of their right to travel freely among the stars. The message would be backed up by a demonstration of power that no alien government could ignore. Captain Morrison gathered his crew in the main assembly bay to deliver the final briefing before their departure. 47 volunteers looked back at him, knowing they were about to attempt something that would either free humanity or result in their complete destruction. Every person aboard had made peace with the possibility that they might not survive the mission. Morrison explained that they would jump directly into the heart of Coalition space and announce humanity's return to the galactic community. The Tempest carried enough firepower to cripple an entire fleet, but their goal was not conquest or revenge. They wanted recognition and respect as equals rather than prisoners in their own star system. The final preparations were completed as Earth's secret weapon prepared to shatter, the piece that had kept humanity trapped for 50 long years. The quantum field generators hummed to life as Captain Morrison gave the order to activate the new drive systems. Navigation Officer Claire Adams watched her instruments carefully as space itself began to bend around the Tempest in ways that no Coalition scientist had ever imagined possible. The ship vanished from normal space without leaving any trace that human technology could achieve such impossible feats. Inside the quantum tunnel, reality twisted in strange patterns while the Tempest traveled faster than light through dimensions that existed between the normal universe. Chief Engineer Lisa Barnes monitored the drive systems as they performed flawlessly during their first real test under actual combat conditions. The journey to Arcturus would take only 6 hours instead of the 3 weeks required by conventional Coalition ships. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship reviewing routine patrol reports that showed nothing unusual in any of the 12 systems under his command. The Arcturus system remained peaceful with normal cargo traffic moving along established shipping lanes, while mining operations continued at their usual steady pace. His tactical display showed 37 Coalition vessels maintaining standard defensive positions around the military headquarters. The Admiral's morning briefing included updates from border patrol units confirming that no human ships had been detected leaving the Sol system. Commander Silthek reported that Earth's orbital traffic remained at minimum levels, with only basic maintenance flights between planets and asteroid mining stations. The quarantine appeared more effective than ever at keeping humanity contained within their home system. Sensor Officer Zekrin monitored the long-range detection grid from his station near the center of the bridge. The automated system scanned constantly for any unusual energy signatures or ship movements that might indicate hostile activity in Coalition space. Every reading showed normal background, radiation and predictable stellar phenomena with no signs of unauthorized vessels anywhere in the region. The Tempest continued its journey through quantum tunnel space as systems. Analyst Greg Palmer tested their stealth capabilities in preparation for arrival. The invisibility field would activate automatically when they dropped back into normal space, ensuring complete surprise until Captain Morrison chose to reveal their presence. Coalition sensors would detect nothing until humanity was ready to announce their return to Galactic. Affairs Weapons Officer Ryan Carter ran final checks on the antimatter pulse cannons while reviewing tactical data about Coalition ship positions around Arcturus Station. The defensive fleet included 2 heavy battle cruisers and 15 escort vessels arranged in a standard patrol formation. Carter calculated optimal firing solutions that would disable the entire fleet without causing unnecessary casualties among the alien crews. Dr. Amanda Foster monitored the Tempest's progress from her laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface through encrypted quantum communication links. The dark matter crystals continued to perform beyond all expectations as they channeled impossible amounts of energy through systems that should have exploded under such extreme conditions. Human engineering had achieved something that challenged the fundamental laws of physics. Communications. Officer Beth Turner prepared the message they would broadcast to Coalition forces after dropping out of quantum space. The transmission would be sent on all standard frequencies simultaneously to ensure every ship in the system received humanity's Declaration of Independence from 50 years of forced isolation. The message would be simple but impossible to ignore or misunderstand. Engineer Kevin Walsh worked with his team to monitor the quantum field stability as they approached their destination. The crystalline matrix from Earth's deep ocean trenches continued to regulate antimatter reactions with perfect precision while generating power levels that exceeded their most optimistic projections. The technology represented humanity's greatest scientific achievement and their best hope for freedom. Coalition traffic control at Arcturus Station processed routine arrival and departure requests from merchant vessels traveling between different star systems. Controller Vashtel noted 16 ships scheduled to arrive over the next 12 hours, along with 23 departures, carrying manufactured goods and raw materials to markets throughout Coalition space. Everything followed normal commercial patterns with no unusual activity reported. The Tempest began its final approach as quantum tunnel space started to dissolve around them. Navigation Officer Adams made microscopic adjustments to their exit coordinates to place them exactly where they wanted to appear inside the Coalition defensive perimeter. The calculations had to be perfect, because they would have only seconds to assess the situation before enemy forces responded. Captain Morrison gathered his crew for the final briefing as they prepared to make history. 47 volunteers looked back at him knowing they were about to become either heroes who freed humanity or martyrs whose sacrifice would inspire future generations. Every person aboard understood that there was no possibility of retreat once they revealed themselves to Coalition forces. Morrison explained their tactical situation and reminded everyone of their primary objectives. They would demonstrate humanity's new capabilities without unnecessarily destroying Coalition vessels or killing alien crews. The goal was to force recognition and respect, rather than to start a war that could result in Earth's complete destruction by overwhelming enemy numbers. The quantum tunnel began to collapse as the Tempest approached normal space near Arcturus Station. Admiral Vextar continued his routine inspection of bridge operations while his crew maintained their standard watch patterns. Sensor displays showed empty space in all directions, with only the expected background, radiation from nearby stars and planets. Engineer Danny Rodriguez monitored the transition from quantum drive to conventional propulsion systems as they prepared to drop back into normal space. The process required careful coordination between multiple systems to avoid creating energy signatures that might give Coalition forces advance warning of their arrival. Every component had to function perfectly. During these critical moments, the Tempest materialized inside the Arcturus system's defensive perimeter without triggering any alarms or automatic detection systems. Stealth fields kept them completely invisible, while Captain Morrison studied tactical displays showing Coalition ship positions exactly where intelligence reports had predicted. The element of surprise remained perfect as they prepared to change the EU balance of power in the galaxy. Systems Analyst Palmer confirmed that all stealth systems were functioning normally while the ship drifted silently through space only, kilometers away from heavily armed Coalition vessels. Their invisibility would last until Morrison gave the order to decloak and announce humanity's return to galactic civilization. The moment of truth was finally at hand. Admiral Vextar had no idea that everything he believed about human capabilities was about to be proven completely wrong. The peaceful morning routine aboard his flagship continued normally while the most dangerous ship ever built by human hands waited in the shadows preparing to deliver a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. Captain Morrison took a deep breath and gave the order that would change everything. Systems Analyst Greg Palmer deactivated the stealth fields as the Tempest suddenly appeared on every Coalition sensor screen in the Arcturus system. Admiral Vextar stared in complete shock at his tactical display showing an unknown vessel that had materialized from nowhere inside their most secure defensive perimeter. Alarms screamed across the Coalition flagship as sensor Officer Zekrin tried to understand readings that made no sense according to everything he knew about physics and spacecraft design. The mysterious ship showed energy signatures unlike anything in their extensive databases, while its hull configuration appeared to use technologies that should not exist. Communications. Officer Beth Turner opened channels on all standard frequencies as her transmission reached every Coalition vessel simultaneously. Her clear voice carried Captain Morrison's message across space with words that struck fear into alien hearts throughout the system. This is the UES Tempest representing the human species, and we demand immediate withdrawal of all Coalition forces from the border systems surrounding Earth. Admiral Vextar felt his blood turn cold as he realized that humans had somehow broken free from their quarantine and developed capabilities that their intelligence reports said were impossible. The ship before him represented everything the Coalition had tried to prevent by keeping humanity trapped in their home system for 50 years. Commander Silthek frantically checked his instruments while trying to understand how any vessel could have bypassed 12 layers of detection systems and early warning networks. The defensive grid had been designed to prevent exactly this type of surprise attack, yet the human ship had appeared as if it had simply materialized from empty space. The Coalition response was swift and predictable as Admiral Vextar ordered all ships to open fire with maximum firepower. 37 vessels unleashed everything they had, including plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes. While energy beams converged on the Tempest from every direction, the barrage should have vaporized any known spacecraft in seconds. Chief Engineer Lisa Barnes watched her defensive systems absorb the massive attack without taking any damage at all. The quantum shields did not simply deflect incoming energy, but converted it directly into power for their own systems. Every shot fired by Coalition forces only made the Tempest stronger while demonstrating the vast gap between human and alien technology. The defensive systems had been designed by engineer Danny Rodriguez using principles discovered during their research into dark matter manipulation. The shields existed partially outside normal space, which allowed them to redirect any form of energy attack back into their own power grid. Coalition weapons were actually feeding power to the ship they were trying to destroy. Weapons Officer Ryan Carter waited for the enemy barrage to end before activating their own offensive systems. The antimatter pulse cannons charged with energy converted from Coalition attacks while targeting computers locked onto 17 enemy vessels simultaneously. Carter's finger hovered over the firing control as he prepared to demonstrate humanity's new capabilities. The Tempest's primary weapon system fired 17 separate pulses of concentrated dark matter that traveled at near light speed toward their targets. Each pulse had been carefully calibrated to disable Coalition ships without destroying them completely or causing unnecessary casualties among the alien crews. The demonstration was designed to show both power and restraint. Admiral Vextar watched in horror as his most powerful battle cruisers suddenly went dark while their engines failed and weapon systems shut down completely. The mysterious pulses had somehow disrupted their ship's power cores without breaching hull integrity or causing explosions. His fleet was crippled, but his crews remained alive. Coalition vessels drifted helplessly through space as their backup. Systems struggled to restart main power while emergency life support maintained breathable atmosphere. The human attack had been precise and surgical rather than destructive, showing a level of technological sophistication that terrified every alien commander in the system. Tactical Officer Sam Mitchell monitored the results of their demonstration while calculating additional firing solutions in case Coalition reinforcements arrived. The pulse weapons had performed exactly as designed by disabling enemy vessels through quantum disruption rather than brute force destruction. The message was clear that humanity possessed overwhelming technological superiority. Dr. Amanda Foster received telemetry data from the Tempest through their quantum communication link as she monitored the battle from her laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface. The dark matter crystals were functioning perfectly while channeling impossible amounts of energy through systems that continued to exceed every theoretical prediction. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Nancy Brooks used advanced sensors to monitor biological conditions aboard the disabled Coalition ships. The quantum pulses had caused no harmful effects on alien crew members, while their medical systems showed normal life signs throughout the enemy fleet. Humanity's restraint sent a powerful message about their intentions. Communications Officer Turner broadcast a follow-up message explaining that the disabled Coalition vessels would regain full power within 6 hours. The temporary shutdown was intended as a demonstration rather than permanent damage, while giving alien commanders time to consider humanity's demands for recognition and respect as equals in galactic affairs. Admiral Vextar found his voice long enough to demand answers about human technological capabilities that intelligence reports had claimed were decades behind Coalition standards. His questions received no response as the Tempest maintained position surrounded by 37 crippled warships that represented the finest military technology the galaxy had to offer. The battle was over before it had truly begun, as Coalition forces realized they were facing an enemy whose capabilities far exceeded their own. News of the encounter would spread throughout the galaxy within hours as alien governments struggled to understand how humanity had achieved such impossible technological advancement. Captain Morrison opened a direct communication channel to Admiral Vextar while explaining that humanity sought peaceful coexistence rather than conquest or revenge. The quarantine had failed in its purpose by forcing human science to develop beyond anything the Coalition could match. Isolation had created exactly the threat it was designed to prevent. Systems across the disabled coalition ships began the slow process of restarting as their crews worked frantically to restore basic functions. The quantum pulses had disrupted their power cores temporarily, rather than causing permanent damage, but the psychological impact would last much longer than any physical effects. Navigation Officer Claire Adams plotted courses back toward Earth while monitoring coalition communication frequencies for any signs of reinforcement fleets approaching their position. The demonstration had been successful, but their mission was not complete until humanity's demands were officially recognized by the Galactic Senate. The most perilous ship on Earth had proven that underestimating human determination and ingenuity was the Coalition's greatest mistake. News of the Tempest's devastating demonstration spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible, as Admiral Vextar's emergency reports reached Coalition headquarters within 3 hours. The Galactic Senate convened an immediate crisis session, while member species demanded explanations about how humanity had developed technology that made their most advanced warships look like primitive toys. Senator Morden of the Crystalline Hegemony stood before the emergency assembly with his confidence completely shattered as he tried to explain how the quarantine had failed so spectacularly. The intelligence reports that showed human stagnation had been completely wrong, while Earth's apparent weakness had been an elaborate deception, covering the greatest technological breakthrough in galactic history. Captain Morrison received dozens of communication requests from alien governments across known space as word of their capabilities reached every corner of civilization. Some species offered immediate alliance, while others begged for protection from coalition oppression that had kept them under control for centuries. The balance of power had shifted completely in less than 60 hours. Intelligence Director Tim Johnson monitored the galactic response from his secure facility on Luna as his long-term strategy finally came to fruition. The quarantine had given humanity exactly what they needed most, which was time and motivation to surpass their former captors. Isolation had forced human science to achieve the impossible while their enemies grew complacent and lazy. The coalition fleet at Arcturus slowly regained power as their engineers worked frantically to restart systems that had been shut down by quantum pulses they could not understand. Admiral Vextar found himself commanding vessels that seemed pathetically outdated compared to the sleek human ship that continued to monitor their every move from a safe distance. Engineer Kevin Walsh transmitted detailed reports to Dr. Amanda Foster about the performance of their dark matter manipulation systems during actual combat conditions. The crystalline matrix had exceeded every prediction while channeling energy levels that should have destroyed any conventional technology. Human engineering had achieved something that challenged the fundamental laws of physics. Communications Officer Beth Turner processed incoming messages from over 200 different alien species as governments throughout the galaxy sought to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. The demonstration at Arcturus had proven that Earth was no longer a primitive species to be ignored, but a technological superpower that demanded respect and recognition. The Galactic Senate faced its worst crisis in over 1,000 years as member species questioned whether the coalition still possessed the military strength to maintain order throughout known space. If humans could disable an entire fleet without taking damage, then what hope did any government have of resisting their demands for political change? Senator Felkari of the Methane World stood before the assembly, demanding immediate negotiations with human representatives, while other delegates called for emergency military mobilization against the new threat. The debate raged for hours as species that had been oppressed by coalition policies saw their first real chance for freedom in centuries. Captain Morrison made the decision to return home as their primary mission had been completed successfully. The demonstration had sent shockwaves throughout galactic civilization while proving that humanity could defend itself against any threat the coalition might send against Earth. The quarantine was effectively over, whether alien governments admitted it or not. Navigation Officer Claire Adams plotted their return course through quantum tunnel space as the Tempest prepared to leave the Arcturus system. The journey home would take only 6 hours, while coalition forces would need weeks to send reinforcements even if they decided to pursue the human ship. Their technological advantage made conventional military response completely useless. Chief Engineer Lisa Barnes monitored their quantum drive systems as they prepared for another journey through dimensions that existed between normal space. The dark matter crystals continued to perform flawlessly while generating power levels that made their ship virtually invincible against any known weapon technology. Possessed by alien civilizations, Admiral Vextar watched helplessly as the Tempest vanished from his sensors without leaving any trace of its departure. The human ship had appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as mysteriously while demonstrating capabilities that made Coalition technology look like primitive cave paintings compared to modern art. Dr. Foster received confirmation that their quantum communication link remained active during the return journey as the Tempest traveled through tunnel space toward Earth. The mission had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams while proving that human determination could overcome any obstacle, including 50 years of forced isolation. From Galactic Society, the Coalition's emergency response fleet arrived at Arcturus 12 hours too late to intercept the mysterious human vessel that had humiliated their most powerful military forces. Fleet Admiral Zorthek surveyed the disabled ships while trying to understand how such devastation had been accomplished without causing a single casualty among Coalition crews. Species throughout the galaxy began withdrawing from Coalition control as news of humanity's demonstration reached their homeworlds. The Orion Mining Consortium declared independence while the Spiral Arm Trade Federation announced they would no longer recognize Coalition authority over commercial shipping routes between star systems. Captain Morrison addressed his crew as Earth came into view after their successful mission that had changed the course of galactic history. 47 volunteers had risked everything to prove that humanity deserved freedom and respect as equals, rather than prisoners in their own solar system. Their courage had opened the door to a new era of human expansion among the stars. Engineer Alex Hughes began work on blueprints for additional ships based on the Tempest's successful design as humanity prepared to share their technology with worthy allies while maintaining enough superiority to prevent future attempts at oppression. The galaxy would learn that caging human ingenuity was the most dangerous mistake any civilization could make. The Galactic Senate voted to lift all quarantine restrictions on Earth while formally recognizing humanity as a sovereign species with full rights to travel and trade throughout known space. The decision was unanimous, as no government wanted to face the consequences of opposing a civilization that could disable entire fleets without breaking their own defensive shields. Coalition forces began withdrawing from border systems around Earth as new treaties were negotiated between human representatives and alien governments that had spent 50 years believing they were dealing with primitive savages. The most perilous ship on Earth had become the catalyst for a revolution that would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology, but their absolute refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. The galaxy had learned this lesson at a cost that would echo through history, while Earth's children prepared to take their rightful place among the stars as equals rather than subjects of alien authority.